Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be ranking every Grand Arena Omicron that makes its way onto a Galactic Legend team. So whether this character is just a marquee unit, they're a conquest unit, wherever they fit into the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes landscape, these Omicrons will be ranked. I have put them into tiers based on how I think they interact with the Grand Arena game mode as a whole, right? So we're going to be breaking this down. I've got a spreadsheet, and we're going to be doing this for all Omicrons. So this will be done for the Galactic Legends in this video. The next video I will release in this series will be the Omicrons for conquest units and legendary characters. And then finally, the third video will kind of be the best of the rest. And I've got to give a huge shout out to Agnards for being like, Phil, you've got to break this up into like 3 videos because you're going to rant for 2 hours and nobody's going to want to hear you talk for 2 hours. I don't even want to hear you talk for 20 minutes. So shout out there, because that is going to, I think the more I thought about it, the more I was like, that does make sense. So here we go, folks. Please like and subscribe, comment down below. Let's give a shout to our channel members, as always, for their continued support. If you're ever interested, y'all know where that link is. It's below, along with link to our Discord server. Just appreciate these folks keeping the faith and believing in me through good takes, bad takes, whatever takes in between. Y'all are amazing. This channel is more than I ever could have imagined it would be, and I really appreciate all you guys. So let's get in here and let's talk some Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes Grand Arena Omicrons. And so we're going to be using a Google spreadsheet, much like Agnards had done for his TB Omicron video, which I reached out to him, was like, dude, I've been wanting to do this. I had these ideas in my head, and he, the way he ranked it was very similar to how I was thinking. And so I just asked him, like, can I basically steal everything you did, but make it Grand Arena? So anyway, here we go. So first thing I did was I added a tier explanation sheet. Not every one of these will be used for Galactic Legends, but you have each of the tier levels. I'm not going to go through all of them in this video. We'll go through all of them in the other ones, because for today's, Galactic Legends, we're going to be looking at the tiers of cause for concern, great character situational use, foundational, and can't live without. Just as a side note, this performance enhancing, it's only applicable to non-Galactic Legend teams. So each one of these has a more detailed explanation. With cause for concern, the Omicron takes a good team and elevates them to a higher threat level, but not to a major degree. Hey, it makes the team better, but not to the point that you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Great character situational use is the Omicron is on a high value character and has some potential for good utility in certain situations, but in some cases will not serve a major purpose or make a noticeable difference, which it sounds like a lot of waffle, but the idea being it's on a great character. There are times where it is super helpful, or it could be helpful, and then there's other times where you're not even going to need it. So that's kind of where we've got to call that out, right? You've got to be able to call that out and say, listen, sometimes you're just not going to need this. Foundational, useful at every level of Grand Arena, and elevates teams to a significantly higher threat level. Yeah, without the Omicron, things change. And then can't live without, literally the best, no arguments allowed. So hopefully that gives you, and you'll see more as you see the examples here, you'll hopefully gain a better understanding of how each of those tiers kind of comes together. So first grouping here that we've got in the cause for concern, we have Chrysanthemum, champion of the fighting pits. The Omicron, I have the full ability here. I'm just going to read the Omicron. At the start of the battle, Chrysanthemum gains 40% max protection. While he is active, all enemies have 30% less potency. If all allies were Hut Cartel at the start of battle, Chrysanthemum is immune to ability block and cooldown increase, and the first time the ally on the leader slot, excluding himself, falls below 50% health, Chrysanthemum taunts for 2 turns, and the ally on the leader slot recovers 50% protection. Listen, I think that's a perfect way to describe cause for concern. Does this change, say, Jabba the Hutt? Yeah, sure, maybe it makes Jabba a little bit harder to kill, but this doesn't really fundamentally change how you're going to approach a Jabba the Hutt fight. This does not change how you would use him offensively or defensively. It's a solid Omicron. It's going to provide you with some additional cover, some additional support, but it's not changing how you're going to be able to play, or attack Jabba, right? The next one here we have is Captain Drogon, which again, I think very similar to the Chrysanthemum Omicron. Drogon has 50% max health. At the start of battle, if the ally in the leader slot is a rebel tank, Drogon is immune to ability block. At the start of each of his turns, he dispels all debuffs from another random ally and recovers 25% health and protection. At the start of battle, if the ally in the leader slot is a rebel fighter support, whenever Drogon scores a critical hit, all rebel allies gain 10% turn meter. Listen, it's a good Omicron, but that doesn't change how you would even approach Galactic Legends Leia. I'd actually argue that this Omicron is a lot scarier with Saw Gerrera than it is with Leia. Drogon's good, but the way you approach Leia teams, you almost kind of ignore Captain Drogon. So, again, it's kind of like cause for concern. Hey, they've got the Drogon Omicron. They're going to be able to either do more on offense or, it's going to be a little bit harder to beat on defense. But it really only changes a small subset of the counters for this team. And that's kind of similar, again, to what you saw with the Chrysanthemum Omicron as well. It's only changing a small subset of the counters. It's not really fundamentally changing how you approach that specific fight. And I want to just pause here and say something. We're going at this from a general perspective. So bear in mind, if you are looking at me like, it changes everything for me, you are in the small minority. And you're even in the smaller minority because the people who watch YouTube videos are the smallest minority of Galaxy of Heroes players. There are far more players who do not watch YouTube than players who do watch it. So you've got to be able to recognize that. Right, come on now. I'm sorry if that burst your bubble. The next one we have is you chose the wrong side on CX2. Again, he gains 100% Empire allies gain 100% max health. If at the start of battle, all allies are dark side clone troopers and or Lord Vader, all allies gain 50% offense, and the first time they fall below 50% health, they recover 100% health and gain 30% bonus protection for 2 turns. Whenever any stacks of damage over time are dispelled on the enemy, they gain a stack of damage over time, which can't be dispelled, evaded, resisted until the end of battle. If Oppo is active, CX2 is immune to taunt effects and can't be targeted during enemy turns. This is a 3v3 only Omicron. Not to, be super harsh, but it's 3v3 only. The reason it's cause for concern is because, again, you're going to be approaching Lord Vader clones with far more respect than we were approaching Lord Vader without clones. I really don't think this is completely changing how you approach that Lord Vader team, right? They've got more health. They're going to have more health. They're going to be a little bit harder to kill, but there's no tank, so it's a, is it a tough team to beat? Sure. Is it impossible? No. Again, I think a lot of the counters still apply here, so it's not something that I'm looking at and saying, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm going to do. It's good. It just isn't to the level that I think it's completely again, it's a cause for concern. There's certain teams where maybe this would be a problem, but for hey, this counter works, it's not changing anything. Which is a similar situation with Scorch, where in using him with Tarkin in 3v3 or with Lord Vader in 5v5, Scorch gains 50% max health, protection, and tenacity. Whenever he loses taunt, all Darkside clones recover 15% health and protection. Whenever he gains taunt, he dispels all debuffs on himself, and all other Darkside clone troopers gain 10% turn meter. Whenever he uses Entrench, he gains an additional 5 stacks of Bulwark. The first time each other non-Galactic Legend Empire ally is reduced to 50% health, Scorch taunts for 2 turns, and that ally recovers 100% health and protection. I'm not gonna lie, it's a solid Omicron. It just doesn't, I can't really tell you that I felt this was hugely impactful to me in 5v5 Grand Arena. I really just did not feel like it was super impactful to me in 5v5 or, when I faced the Tarkin clones in 3v3. They're good teams. It's a good Omicron. It causes some concern. It might change a little bit of the counters you're using, but overall, it's not like oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to handle this team. It doesn't have that oomph to me. And that might be a little bit harsh on the Lord Vader clones, but I think that's kind of where those fit into each other. I think the bigger problem would be if this Omicron and this Omicron were active at the same time, then we've got some issues, but, they're not. So they're both kind of, hey, cause for concern. Next, moving into the next tier, Great Tune situational use, we have Malevolent Whirlwind on Darth Bane. This is the Grand Arena Omicron where you're going to gain an additional 3% ultimate charge against deceived or linked enemies, and Bane gains an additional 5 siphon. Again, Bane's a great tune. Situational use here because, number one, the extra ultimate charge is only applicable if you're using him with Sith Eternal. And then the extra 5 siphon can be extremely helpful, but sometimes the fight's already over by the time you use this. Like, I can tell you, I have done plenty of fights where, like, my first move is the AoE, and then his second special, right? And then that kills people, or they kill your ad, and then you use the other one again. Like, it just, and sometimes you don't need this, other times you do. To me, this is the least impactful of Darth Bane's Omicrons. It still can be very solid. It's got its uses, especially against if the fight is going to be running long. You'll want this so he gains extra stacks of Siphon and can increase his max health, but it's not like, what's the phrasing I want to use here? Sometimes you just will not notice this at all. This is also where we have Redeemed from Ben Solo. This literally just allows Ben Solo's attacks to ignore protection. That is it. That's the only thing this allows him to do. The reason I have this as a situational use Omicron, in the upper echelon of Grand Arena, as your Ben Solo gains relic levels, this becomes extremely important. When Ben Solo's Relic 3, Relic 5, he's really not in the team because he's dealing a lot of damage. He's there because it makes the Rey battle a lot harder. He makes that, just a little bit more challenging. You can't just Zerg down Rey. You got to be able to take care of Ben too. He just adds another dynamic to that battle that's missing otherwise. As he gains relics, you get him to Relic 7, you get him to Relic 8, you put really good mods on him and he starts dealing damage. The ignoring protection starts to come in handy, and all of a sudden he's hitting people like a Mack truck, and it's kind of scary. So I really like this Omicron, situational use, because some characters don't even, have protection. They just have all of their health. And again, kind of dependent on the relic level of your character. Whoops. I'm kind of like going in and out there. My bad. Yeah. Kind of, I was trying to look at something else, and then I didn't realize that it was, going in and out like that. So Redeemed, again, good, but, situational use at times, and again, kind of needing those relics. We have Exile from Ezra Bridger Exile here. This is a very good Omicron, but it's, the reason I say it's situational, just reading through it, the first time a Spectre ally gains and loses Exile, they also gain 5% mastery per relic level on them. The first time a Spectre ally loses Exile, they gain an additional 30 speed. These bonuses persist through defeat. This is great. Again, kind of connected to his need for extra relic levels. So if you don't have a lot of relic levels, you're not nearly getting as much mastery, because the entire thing here is about gaining mastery. 30 speed is also really nice, don't get me wrong, but are you really going to spend an Omicron for an extra 30 speed? Now, you equip some Relic 8s on, Relic 7, Relic 8s, and you're gaining an insane amount of mastery on your, Ezra. And again, first time they gain and lose Exile. So again, at the start of battle, right? At the start of battle, all light side allies gain Foresight, gain Tenacity up, and Ezra is exiled. So that exile at the start of battle counts. So he's going to gain mastery there, and then he's going to gain mastery when he then loses it. So the more relic levels you have, that's when this, again, situational use. Also, because if you use him outside of the Spectre team, this also isn't as beneficial because he's only giving that to himself, where you use this in the Spectre lineup and everybody, Padawan Sabine, Hu Yang, General Syndulla, they're all gaining this ability as well, and the mastery gains just going up on a Tuesday, right? So that's where this fits in for the great characters situational use. Next, we have foundational, right? These are those ones, listen, they're really good, right? This is when we're starting to get into this is where we're cooking. So we've got Daring Advance by Ezra Bridger Exile. For each critical hit scored, deal 20% bonus damage on the targets based on the target's max health, which can't be evaded, and buff immunity and healing immunity, and offense down for 2 turns, which can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted. Reduce the cooldown of Daring Advance by 1. Just look, this is a 3-turn cooldown. So now, he can spam this. Every other turn, he's inflicting those debuffs. So if he's faster than the character that you're going up against, he can keep somebody locked down on offense down, healing immunity, buff immunity. That's a problem, right? He can completely shut someone down with those debuffs for all of GAC. It is actually devastating when that happens, especially if you're bringing, say, Malicos up against this, if he's with Rey, or you're going up against Ahsoka. You're going up against an Ahsoka team and he does that to your Drogon. Like, things can go south quickly with that ability. Next, we have Darkseid Rey's Malevolent Lineage. And I was struggling with this one, but I felt this was the best place to put it. Shock can't be dispelled or resisted. Enemies defeated by this can't be revived. Remove 100% turn meter from all characters. Enemies with bonus protection, protection up, or shield up reduce their max health and protection by 20% for the rest of the encounter, excluding GLs. If there's any version of Kylo Ren in the leader slot, all First Order allies recover 50% health and protection and gain speed up for 2 turns. Yeah, this is a amazingly good Omicron. It is better when equipped with another one, which we'll talk about later. But this Omicron is really good. It's foundational to me. It is the least important of her Omicrons, which is tough to say, but I think that is that is where I would kind of draw my line. That said, it was tough to put it here. The shock can't be dispelled or resisted. That's huge. We're seeing the impact of that now with her, ridiculous datacron. But the bigger thing that this is doing, in my opinion, it's giving the turn meter removal. So you think you're going up against a team, everybody's turn meter is getting removed. That helps your First Order, and they're getting speed up. So then your Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, everybody goes back to 100, goes back to 0 turn meter. Kylo's gaining speed up, so now he should be taking that next turn, which could be brutal for the opposing team, right? So that's kind of why this is so good. Adding additional survivability, it's fun. Then we have Essence of Dominance from Darth Bane. This is his middle special, right? Or like the second special there. Increase enemy cooldowns by 2 instead. Remove 50% turn meter from all enemies, and Sith allies gain 50% turn meter. Reduce all enemies' defense and tenacity by 20% stacking, which can't be resisted until the end of battle. Yeah. Also extremely good. Think about some of those long battles where you're going up against Ahsoka Tano, you're going up against a Leia or something like that. He can reduce their defense. So even if they have a high defense cron, he can start taking that away the more often this ability is used. And again, 2 turn cooldown increase is mental on this ability. That can buy you, I should say, a lot of time for Darth Bane to get cooking. So yeah. Really like this ability. Again, it's a foundational one. It is not his most important one, obviously, but it is up there. And then we have Obscured from Ben Solo. Again, kind of in this foundational tier where it's good at every level. It elevates Ben Solo and Rey to a much greater level. When this ability is used, Ben Solo's cooldowns are reduced by 1. If GL Rey is in the allied leader slot, this attack instead deals true damage and inflicts healing immunity for 4 turns, which can't be copied, dispelled, evaded, or resisted. The big thing here, as much as I love his cooldowns getting reduced, it is that 4-turn healing immunity, which is devastating to a lot of teams. 4-turn healing immunity is, again, miserable. That is just forever in Grand Arena. And you think against a galactic legend like Rey, who has her sudden whirlwinds, who has her ultimate abilities, this becomes a big problem. And especially if you're going underneath somebody's protection, right? You think you're ignoring their protection. You've ate away at their health. They can't recover that. One of the things that can happen at times is, let's say you have that, hey, you went underneath my protection, but everybody else is going on top of it, and I can recover health through health steal, this kind of puts an end to that. So yeah, 100% this is foundational to me. Really important to have on the Rey team, but obviously not his most important Omicron. And we get to the can't live without, starting off with Darth Bane's Rule of 2. So in Rule of 2, you have at the start of battle, if there is only one other non-summon ally present and they are Sith, Bane gains 75% mastery, 75% max health, and 75% max protection. Whenever an enemy is defeated, Bane gains 10% max health, protection, and offense, stacking until the end of battle. At the start of battle, Bane takes a bonus turn. These effects persist if Bane is defeated. The big reason why that bonus turn is so important, is that's how you beat Jedi Master Kenobi, right? That's how he beats Jedi Master Kenobi. He takes that bonus turn at the start, boom, cooldowns are going up. This is also really important because you go up against, say, Queen Amidala. You could go up against the Inquisitors. You know, like the only character that is going to outrun Bane is Han Solo. So yeah, Bane with this Omicron, this is the most important. The 75% mastery, max health, and protection is also just ridiculously good. You really need that in order. And then even just going into this enemy is defeated, Bane gains max health, protection, and offense stacking. Notice it does not have a cap there. It doesn't say the first time each enemy is defeated. So think, if you're going up against an Ahsoka team, you kill Ezra and he has backup plan and he comes back. Hey, guess what? Bane just gained 10% max health, max protection, and offense, and you're going to do it again. Think about killing the Handmaiden and Queen Amidala battles. Hey, comes back, Bane's gaining those stats again. So this does really help him that in some of those fights where people are reviving, if you didn't get, you didn't kill him with his basic or some ability that can't be revived, this can play a big role in just helping him gain more health throughout the battle. Next is Darkside Rays. Don't be afraid of who you are. All other First Order allies with Retaliate recover protection at the end of their turn equal to 100% of the damage they received. First Order allies with advantage ignore taunt effects on their turn. If the ally in the leader slot is Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, whenever he enters aggressive stance, the cooldown of Malevolent Lineage is reset. So the big thing here, right, is allies with advantage ignore taunt. That is huge. That enough would be alone for me to say, yeah, equip this thing. But I think more, just as important, the cooldown of Malevolent Lineage is reset, which again, if you combine this Omicron, where you're removing turn meter, giving speed up and things, yeah, this becomes a lot more valuable to me because you're going to be able to spam that ability. Really, this one, it really comes down to why this is here and not a tier lower, is ignoring taunt. Kylo ignoring taunt has been one of the best things to happen to him. It was one of the biggest cruxes of his kit, was you would just bring, he can't ignore the taunt, so you could kind of cheese that with certain teams because he couldn't get around it. Next, Omicron, again, we have 2 for Darkside Ray in this category, and that is in our nature. So this one is, while Rey is untargetable from this ability, First Order allies can't be defeated. So there, if everybody hasn't taken a turn on the enemy team, Rey, can't be targeted, which means nobody can be defeated. So instant defeat from Commander Tano, the Force Leap, doesn't work. While an enemy is less than full health, they can't recover protection. Whenever a First Order ally is inflicted with a debuff, they lose 1% turn meter once per turn and gain 1% offense, stacking for the rest of the encounter. Remember, with Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, one of the big things is whenever you lose turn meter, you gain 10% max health and protection, stacking until the end of battle. So this turn meter removal every time you get a debuff, just 1%, is resulting in you getting an extra 10% max health and protection. So yeah, this does become a very big deal. It really does help your team just kind of churn through some of those higher level teams that you would be facing in Grand Arena. So you kind of need both of these, in my opinion. You really need all 3 of hers, but those are the 2 that I think are the most important, kind of combining together between the taunt effects, right, ignoring taunt, and then the instant defeat. Nobody can be defeated until, Rey, while Rey is untargetable. That's a big deal to me. That really does help this team just kind of survive until, everything's ready to go. Next one on the list here is Kanan's Legacy. This is a great Omicron. Ezra gains 25 stacks of Purgo Migration, and all Spectre allies gain backup plan for 2 turns, which can't be copied or dispelled. The big reason here is 25 stacks of Purgo Migration. That basically means as soon as he uses this ability, he is out of exiled. If he's, it's a problem. He uses this, he loses exile a lot faster, and in some fights that is a big deal. The sooner he loses exile, the sooner that he can start really wreaking havoc on your team. Because remember, while he's exiled, right, if you remember, he can't gain like positive effects. So even one of the things that you'll notice about Ezra, if you put him in, say, a Rey squad, You take Ezra below 50% health, Rey will sudden Whirlwind, but when Ezra loses that like damage immunity, he doesn't recover health. He'll stay below 50% health if he's exiled. So the faster he loses that, the more of a nuisance that he becomes a lot more quickly. So that's why this one is really important. So why it's why it's here, because you just got to get him out of exile. Once he's out of exile, that's when every other Omicron becomes more important for him. And then the last one, guys, Force Dyad with Ben Solo. Everybody knew this had to be on here. If the enemy in the leader slot begins their turn with Ben Solo defeated and Ben has an active ally, he revives with 51% health and all allies gain instant defeat immunity for the rest of the encounter, which can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented. Listen, the big thing here is the fact that he just keeps coming back, and you've got to play Whack-A-Ben, which is one of the worst games to play. It's not fun. Why this is here? Because this is what takes Rey from being an annoying team to, okay, I'm just going to Star Killer it, to like, okay, this is an annoying team, and I've got to time my kills so that way I kill Rey while Ben is down, because Ben comes back, Rey gets an ultimate, and now I'm cooked. Like, this adds a whole new layer of complexity for Rey that sometimes can, even in the later stages of the game, this is still such an annoying thing to deal with. So, folks, that is the end of the video. I think that is all of the Galactic Legend Omicrons that you can be using. Again, Darth Bane counting. Let me know what you guys think about this list. I hope you are looking forward to kind of the next group, which we will do the Legendary and Journey Guide characters. Let me know what you think. Let me know what, hey, Phil, you should have moved this, you should have moved this. Again, this will be linked in the video description as well. And then I will create a separate spreadsheet with the Legendary one and Journey Guide, create a separate one for just like the best of the rest. And then, you know, maybe we'll put together a little infographic for you guys with kind of everything all together, or, you know, in the separate areas. Let me know what you guys think. You know, I hope this helps. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.